Can I just say something first?
No, because we don't need to go on with it. I'm just saying.
No, it would. We were really busy in real estate, and
now look at you
okay.
making the excuses.
Okay, all right.
So we're playing the bingo. We're playing the bingo,
office?
and all of a sudden everyone starts saying bingo, 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 and she's like, wait a minute, what? Well, here she'd mimeographed off or photocopied the bingo card.
See, I bought
so
the
everybody
packet.
has the same bingo card.
No,
so
like I bought the packet, the kit, and I'm like, okay, I need 40 sheets. So I copied like 10 of each or whatever. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Sugar in the morning, sugar in the afternoon.
All right, so we got Christine Stueve on the show, and we're going to be talking about.
You get that right?
I'm still not quite sure what we're going to be talking about, but I'm going with it. So you have a Santo Wellness Center.
Sano Wellness Center.
Sano, not Santo.
Right.
No.
Sano. Not Santo like Santa Claus.
No,
Right.
Sano means to heal.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
In what language?
Greek.
In Greek.
Yep.
Sano Wellness Center.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what kind of healing?
Alternative.
Naturopathic healing.
Neuroscience.
Okay.
Through a biblical lens.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What's your biggest? Where is it now? It's in Lakeville. Where in
Correct.
Lakeville? Just give us. Let's get the
Right off of, I believe it's exit 81.
Okay.
So it's right on Keokuk Avenue.
Okay.
And we moved there a little over a year ago, and we were originally in Bloomington.
All right. So if I'm, who's coming?
The people everywhere.
Yeah.
All kinds, ages.
How
people.
do they know that they should come to you?
Usually, it's the majority of it's word of mouth. People that have seen, breakthrough in their health journeys and things that they've been exposed to they didn't know existed.
Okay.
And they get
Like
the
what's
word
that
out.
mean? What's that mean?
Therapies that people aren't aware of, that they have options to access. Really great ways that we teach people how to do things at home. That equip, enable, and empower them to kind of keep things moving forward for themselves and how much they can do on their
That
own.
sounds like a buzzword.
How much or how little.
And empower.
Okay.
Sounds practiced.
I like it.
Okay.
That's actually
It
what I have for my
went so
self-defense
easy.
one. So
Right.
that's it. That does roll off.
It just
Yeah.
flows so
Yeah.
easy off the
Yeah.
lips there.
How do they know that you know what you're doing?
Well, I have a double PhD.
Okay.
My first PhD is in naturopathic medicine
Okay.
and neuroscience, and my second PhD is in biblical medicine.
Oh, biblical medicine. How interesting is that? I could have a whole
Yeah.
show on that.
You
Oh,
good?
yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so they come to you by word of mouth. Are they generally? Do you find that they're generally like, I'm at my wit's end,
Usually.
and I've done everything that
Yes.
they quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes, that they tell me to do,
Yes.
and nothing's working.
Whoever
Correct.
they is.
Whoever they
Yep.
is. Well, they
Yes.
would be Western medicine. I've gone to
Okay.
the GP.
Okay.
I've gone to 6
Okay.
specialists,
Okay.
and nothing. I got nothing.
Yeah, that's how people will find us online for sure. They'll start, Googling or searching out certain, buzzwords.
Yeah, keywords.
Like oxygen chamber or, PEMF therapy or anything that has to do with the brain neurofeedback. It's one of our specialties. And the bulk of what I do, the thing that lights me up in a day is to be able to help children.
Mm-hmm.
As a stress reduction therapy clinic, we help children get out of trauma.
Okay.
So I work a lot with foster
So
kids.
are the
wait,
kids
wait,
your
wait, I have a-
specialty? Are the kids your specialty, or it just happens to be what you're talking about?
That's my
now?
passion.
Okay.
Our specialty is anyone that's, dealing with stress that's creating symptoms.
Okay.
What would the
Simply.
symptoms be? I'm going down a path here. You're going to change my direction.
Symptoms, anything from rashes to headaches
Okay.
to can't sleep, can't digest my food, you name it. Any kind of an autoimmune scenario.
All right, is it my turn now?
Yes, ma'am.
After I wrote down my question so I didn't forget it.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Good thinking.
yeah, thank you. Do people know that they're in trauma?
No.
See, I don't think they do either. I
A lot
don't
of
think
people
people
don't.
realize.
I don't think people
they're-
would label it as such.
No, because the definition of trauma in our clinic is anything unresolved in the brain.
Yeah.
Well, if you have a stress pattern that keeps triggering and you keep going into fight or flight every day and you don't know why, well, that is a result. There was a trauma somewhere, and at some point.
Sheila has a lot of stuff that's unresolved in my brain.
I'm throwing the pen. It's going to be
Unresolved
next
in
week or
my
something.
brain.
Direct hit.
right, exactly.
But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Most people don't know that they're just going through the motions and they're doing what they think is normal, what feels normal. Just because it's familiar and normal doesn't mean it's good.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now, how many people do you see, because we're on the trauma thing,
Mm-hmm.
that have a trauma from years ago
Mm-hmm.
that they don't realize that they had?
Every
That's
day.
creating the issue.
Every day.
So it doesn't have to be a current trauma.
No.
It
No.
can be a past trauma. Okay,
Mhm.
so I come in and like, I have no idea what my trauma
Mhm.
is.
Right.
How do I know what my trauma? How do you figure out what my trauma is? What's triggering?
Well, usually people come in with symptoms, and they don't
Right.
realize that the symptoms are as a direct byproduct of what the original trauma was that's unresolved.
If you don't know you
Okay.
have a trauma, you probably don't have a trauma.
Well,
Is that fair?
It's something where I explain to people that it's not even something that I want to label as a trauma. It's just let's look at what that stress pattern is and figure out how to resolve it, so your brain can finally be at peace about it, and then your body won't take direction from the quote unquote trauma anymore.
All right, so when we come back, we're going to continue on with Christine Stueve, double PhD. So impressed. That
You asked.
I know. So
I don't go full
and we're
that
going to
around.
talk.
you know.
I just kind of want to hear about the journey when you go through. Someone comes in, they got some symptoms, and then we'll pick it up from there. I mean,
Sure.
how do you unwind all of that? This is our Healthy Homes. We'll be right back. Talking with Christine Stueve, double Photoshop developer. And
Never
so
been called that. That's a good
so
one.
someone's has I don't know what a symptom is. I mean, like a really juicy one. What would be a really juicy symptom that you like?
Ooh,
God, I can't sleep.
take a pic.
So can't sleep, headaches,
Sleep.
maybe.
Headaches.
A lot of headaches, neck pain, all that. So they come in, they've been to the chiropractor, nothing. You got nothing. Been to the GP, you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Been to the shrink. What's wrong with you? Get out of here. You got nothing wrong with you. You're living in the suburbs.
Yep.
And so they finally come to you,
Mhm.
and it's like, I can't sleep at night. I cannot sleep.
Mhm.
Can't get to sleep. I have constant headaches. I'm wound up.
Yep.
Help me.
Yep.
Where do you start?
We have 3 different assessments that we do to understand the level of stress and where's the stress likely weakening the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do what we call a thermometry scan. We do a heart rate variability test that includes a Valsalva maneuver, and then we do a QEEG, which is a
Valsalva
quantitative
maneuver.
EEG on the brain waves. So we're able to measure just the levels of stress in the body and find out likely where the things or the communication is off. Because that's the other thing people don't realize is physical symptoms are a direct result of the body either not communicating properly, toxic overload,
Communicating with who?
like itself.
Okay.
Because your brainstem, 90% of your body function comes from your brainstem. So if your brainstem is taking direction from an old triggered pattern of stress, eventually it's going to create symptoms. And so helping people understand that, then they can start taking control of things a little bit better and start doing positive things every single day that start to accumulate over time, and people actually get better. They heal.
Can you? I'm curious. Can you just tell from looking at people when they come in? I mean, you can just kind of see it, right?
To some degree, yeah.
Yeah. I
Yep.
mean, there's something wrong with
I
this
call
guy.
that face mapping, and I love to do face mapping. How many times do I do face
Yeah.
mapping when we're people? Oh my gosh,
Gosh.
that person better get their liver checked.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so they come in. So
Can't
you do
help
your
it.
you
You
do
can't
your
help it.
assessment.
Can't help
you
it.
do
Can't
your
help it.
assessment. The
Mhm.
3 tests.
Mhm.
Do you have names for them? What were the names
Yes,
of them? again?
thermometry scan. It's technology out of Germany.
Okay.
And
Now,
then
now is that the
What
same? Is that the same as when I go get my thermography for my
No.
for my
No.
breasts?
completely different.
Okay, so
completely
what is it
They
again?
put a thermometer under their armpit.
Thermometer. Thermometer.
No, what
Okay,
is
well,
it?
she
Thermography.
talks
What
quite
is it?
fast, so I got to
Yeah.
like pick up on.
It's actually where we're testing the skin points. So there's 120 points on the scan, and then your body cools down for 10 minutes, and then we redo the scan at 120
So
points.
it is
Exact same.
actually
it's a before and after.
a heat test.
It's when when your body is stressed, like let's say you get cold.
Uh-huh.
Let's say you're standing in the room in your underwear for 10 minutes.
Yep.
Your body starts to pool the blood to the core.
Sure.
Okay, well,
Keep
that's
the
a
organs
different, right. And what that does is that's what we call a non-invasive stressor. So then the body actually changes within itself how it's going to communicate.
Sure.
And then the stressors start to show up,
Oh.
Such as
such as like if my system is blocked, let's say lymphatic system isn't working quite right, there's an inflammatory process, or there's all kinds of different stressors that are blocking and hindering the brain to communicate to the body, or the body communicating back up to the brain. So that's what I'm looking for, because for me it's about patterns. It's about finding out, why is my body doing what it's doing? How do I resolve it so that we can put the body on a new truth path, where we start
So
operating
that-
Well,
in
how do you
truth.
do that though?
Yeah, so that test now
Mhm.
would tell you in your example, so you're in the cold room.
Mm-hmm.
You would expect that the skin temperature is going to drop down a little bit. Is that
Well,
what I'm
it's
hearing?
more about that, just a small amount, because it just changes the fact that the body recognizes the temperature's changing.
Right.
So I'm going to protect the organs.
Right. So then you're measuring that.
Correct.
Okay,
You're measuring, then you're seeing the before and after. So you get a visual picture of what's before
but what
and
does
after.
that tell you?
It shows up where there's stressors in the system that people wouldn't otherwise know.
Okay.
And so it's very helpful, because when we can see patterns of where, it looks like let's say sometimes the colors will show up,
Mm-hmm.
and the darker the color typically means the less communication that's going through that part of the body.
All right.
So it's kind of like, have you ever seen one of those heat scans where it
Mhm.
says the emotion is this color and the
Right,
emotion is
right.
that color? Similar to that, but it's really based in Oriental medicine. It's based off of acupuncture points.
But does it tell? It doesn't tell you the origin of that miscommunication.
No,
though?
then I
Okay.
use a different tool for that.
Okay. What is
Yeah, the different tool I use is integrated kinesiology.
that? Okay.
So then we're able to determine with the brainstem what is the highest quote-unquote priority stressor. And for that person, it could be anything. They just got triggered yesterday.
So tell me about that. How's that work?
So if someone, let's say they're at the grocery store.
Explain integrated kinesiology to me, first of all. What is that?
Integrated kinesiology means that you can muscle test the body in multiple ways.
Okay.
You can also muscle test the spine to determine what a yes or a no, a weak or a strong indicator looks like. So that's what I prefer to do, because I work with a lot of infants, a lot of people in wheelchairs, a lot of people that have had strokes can't talk to me,
Okay.
nor can they hold their arm up for a typical
Right.
AK. So when we're able to determine what the highest stressor is, then we start asking that person to kind of walk through what I call brain mapping. I have a different long 8.5 by 14 form. And we walk through spiritually, what is the opposite of fear? Emotionally, what's the opposite of grief? Physically, what's the opposite of pain?
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that, so that person can determine what they want that new neural pathway to be in their brain. So what we're doing is resolving what shows up on a CT scan as a spiral. And it's a spiral with like little spirals in it. And when you look at the CT scan, that actually shows up for any traditional neurologist. Most of the time I hear the feedback that is just, they quote unquote call it normal, because everybody has them.
Right.
But that's negative energy spinning the wrong way in the brain. And that's based on German New Medicine. And so as Dr. Hammer from Germany was able to determine this, he was taking people that had all kinds of autoimmune, but he liked to do a lot with cancer in Germany. And what he discovered was that those spirals were directly tied to their body going into stress patterns that was weakening their immune system. Well, why would
Is
you
this
want
doctor
that?
still alive?
No.
Okay.
No, he's not. I think he passed away in 1978. I'm not positive. 70, 80, something like that. But it was well documented discoveries and research that he did. And when that happened, and he started to see there was a direct correlation between the 3 brain layers in the brain, which everybody has, endoderm, ectoderm, mesoderm, right? So all 3 brain layers are directly attached to body organs and systems. Well, if in utero, let's say mom had a really stressful event, unexpected lost her dog or something, wasn't expected, well, that's going to be a stressor that the mom's going to process. But if she's pregnant, that's going to start entraining into the baby's nervous system.
What's going to happen to the baby then?
And then the baby, either that continues to proceed and the baby can resolve that, or the baby will be born in potentially a fight or flight scenario. And
Which then shows up how in a baby?
Shows up in a baby, a discontent, can't be consoled, hard time latching on, hard time digesting, constipated, crying a lot, bloated, all kinds of different symptoms come as a result of that. Because now what's happening is the minute you go into a stress pattern, your spine tells your body to do the opposite of what it was designed by God to do. So,
you've just described half of her symptoms there, so I'm just making note. I'm writing as fast as I can.
Not to worry, you're going to have a replay. You can listen to it.
Okay.
So I have to believe, now I'm going to get kind of off on another track here, but it's got to be for these poor kiddos that all these babies that were born in 2020, 2021, right, that this has got to be a whole different level of
She's got to work for 20 years now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
right.
job security for
Yeah.
sure. Yep.
right, or
Yep.
longer. How does somebody even I mean, like most people would think, oh, my kid's irritable and they want mom most of the time. Like people don't even probably understand like probably 5% of what
Right.
happened in utero that created this.
Correct. And so that's one of the key things that I try to focus 20 to 25% of my time on is educating people, whether it's
Okay,
doing
because that was going to be my next
seminars,
question
webinars,
is how do we get the word out
radio
to them?
shows, whatever. But when the COVID cyst thing hit,
Yeah.
I stopped teaching monthly. I would have one seminar a month, and I'd have anywhere from 40 to 50 people that would come, and that gives them an opportunity to ask questions, learn what we do, how we do it, why we do it, and then to absorb the information and then decide if this is a good fit, is this a good time, stuff like that. But I haven't gone back into a teaching series yet, just because of location change and having the place to do it, because the building we have, my new building doesn't have a conference room and things. So yeah, but
well, we've got the conference room.
We do have a conference room. This is our Healthy Homes. We have to go out to break, pay some bills right now. Last time we kind of walked through a little bit of how when someone comes into the clinic, they're kind of at their last straw. They got some symptoms. You run them through a couple of tests, and then there was a third test.
Yes,
what
right.
test was that?
it's called QEEG.
What is it?
EEG.
Okay, what is that?
It's
What does that do?
Quantitative EEG. So all it does is measures the stress with the brain waves in the brain. So there's 5 main brain waves. There's other waves, but the ones that are really important for people to know is like your delta wave is your sleep wave. That's what helps you go into deep sleep, which most people are not getting. People that wake up in the morning.
Meditative state.
Right, that's alpha theta, yep. And then we've got beta waves, which are your day waves, which are am I awake, am I alert, can I remember, or do I need, double cappuccino at 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
Right.
So all of those things are a measure of how stressed is the body and what patterns are the brain in at any given time. And so we're able to see that eyes open and eyes closed, so we can mimics what's going on at nighttime versus during the day.
So how many people come in and think that they're not stressed, but then they really are once you do the test?
Well,
Very
why
few.
would they be there?
Very few.
Okay.
Because most people walk in and they know they're stressed for
Okay,
whatever
okay.
reason.
They wouldn't be
are.
there otherwise.
Well, a husband might have sent them in.
Okay.
They usually trail along at the end.
Okay,
Usually
all right,
it's
okay.
usually
So
it's
So you do these tests. It still doesn't give. How do you still know what the cause is?
So
You've identified there is something there.
right.
But what is it? How
Or
do you
stress
fix
patterns.
it? How do you fix it?
It usually correlates with what their lifestyle is and or what they see as things that stress them, so to speak. It's my job, or it's my marriage, or it's my kids. They're aware consciously of what their current stressors are. So then they're like, well, is this tied to, do I have any correlation to these patterns? So as we start working in, one of the main things that I can do is craniosacral therapy, and I help people, I teach them how to do an exercise that keeps their vagus nerve in neutral. Because your vagus nerve is the main nerve that goes into fight or flight. And when that happens, your vagus nerve runs digestion, sleep, hormones, all kinds of stuff. So if all of a sudden my vagus nerve isn't, and it comes down on both sides of the neck, if that's not staying neutral, I'm getting subconsciously triggered into fight or flight all the time. And I don't know how to get myself out of that rabbit hole.
And how long is a craniosacral treatment? Like 45?
5 minutes to reset that and help your body with that exercise.
Wow.
Yep.
That's fast.
And I send people home with the handout on how to do it at home. So it's equipping them to do it at home and doing and staying. Like now, one of the top things to help people heal is to help them stay out of fight or flight.
Yes, right.
Right? They
Yep.
can't constantly keep running from the bear.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And everybody I see is running from the bear. I don't care how little or big they are, newborns, same thing. So helping just equip people in that small sense is massive return.
Do you do animals?
I can't do that. I don't have a veterinary license.
Oh,
But
okay.
I can give emotional support. So I do emotional consulting for horses, dogs, things like that. Yep, I can. Can do that.
Now that just threw him over. 2
Well, it's off the
PhDs.
track. Okay, so
Okay.
now I want to get back to
Okay.
So do you see a difference between men and women in terms of their ability to recognize whether or not they're under stress?
That's a good question. I think it's more about whether the person, male or female, is seeing these symptoms interrupt their lifestyle, and it's enough that they're not getting to the bottom of it, and it's affecting their lifestyle in a negative way. I see probably, I'd say the same percentage of both male and female that can recognize it, but it's more female predominantly. I'm getting more and more males as time goes on because people are getting triggered like they've never been triggered before for the last couple of years. So it's a different ballgame.
When you say triggered, what's that mean?
Like where all of a sudden they know they're in fight or flight and they
Okay.
can't get out.
Okay.
They just cannot settle down. They can't go to sleep. They can't wake up and do their job. They're not remembering things. Where people that have really mentally focused jobs can't do it anymore. People are really, this last couple of years has really rocked people.
What's been the hardest case you've had to deal with?
Oh my.
Sheila
I would
wants
say-
Sheila wants her name and address.
I would say
Maybe it's a him.
it's someone that's walking through life right now and having a very difficult time dealing with reality. That would be my hardest case right now because it's
Dealing with reality.
yeah, dealing with reality in the sense that not coming into me and we have a check-in tablet and saying this, oh, I'm great. I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Why are you here then?
Yeah.
If you're fine, you don't need me, But it's a matter of really helping people to understand and then help come alongside them to handle processing that, because processing is a big deal. And processing in the brain, if that is something they didn't learn growing up because they were in a household like mine, where I grew up in a very negative household, very stressful, wasn't allowed to make mistakes, had to be perfect, all that kind of stuff, which we know is impossible. You develop mechanisms of survival. And when that happens, you have to unlearn those mechanisms of survival. And when you do, people start to do that on their own. So when I teach them, you take the Word of God and you apply that on there, then you don't have to walk in fear. That isn't the ideal state, because fear is going to trigger you into fight or flight. Well, who hasn't had fear? Who hasn't had pain, so we can talk at those foundations and go from there, depending on where that person's at, so that we can move them a step forward, and then they can take it as far as they want.
Grief.
Yes, big one.
So I got to believe you're seeing
Yes.
more people because of the grief.
Yes.
I just feel like, I just feel like the younger generation has a harder time processing grief.
Yes.
I don't know why that is, but I just think that's a thing. Am I like in the ballpark with that or not?
Oh yeah, you're definitely in the ballpark.
And
It
why do
gives
you
me
thi-
grief all the time. I don't have any trouble processing it. Okay, so now I want to just dovetail off that if you could. So if in with that in mind, that maybe someone has a hard time processing grief or whatever it is, whatever their stressors are.
Yep.
Do you find that how those stressors manifest themselves changes based on sex, age, ethnicity, or any other factors that you can see that this person is in this age tier, male, he's probably going to manifest these kinds of stressors in this way?
No, I don't see. No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I think it's more of it's very custom. It's very unique to each individual. It has
Okay.
a lot to do with how that person was raised and what negative or positive belief systems they currently have.
All right.
It really does have a basis in that, because if I grew up in a fear-based environment, or I'm not good enough, or I'm never going to be enough, nothing but negative feedback, I'm going to have a very, very low opinion or self-image, typically. Okay, but if
What about the opposite?
right, and if there's the opposite, then that person's going to have typically an easier time processing things. But anytime people go through, like we talked about earlier, what they say is normal doesn't mean it's good. It's unlearning what parts are stressful, or actually maybe even enabling their stress behaviors, rather than being able to process through them and come to a better conclusion or a better option for them. And that's really the bulk of what I do, because once we can identifying the things is usually pretty easy, because people know that they've got this particular thing going on. They just haven't processed through to make the connection of how many different things are potentially the waterfall effect after that. They just kind of get stuck there.
Well, but
I-
don't you something like I look at myself? I'm in the real estate business.
Mm-hmm.
It's a stressful deal.
It
Yes.
is.
You know,
Yeah, it is.
So
Right.
I mean,
Right, it is.
I'm under stress all the time.
Right.
I'm divorced with 5 kids and 16 grand. It's a stressful deal.
Yeah.
It's just, of course it is.
Right.
That's kind of why I say, well, are you under stress? Well, of course I am.
Right. Right. So what you can do in that case scenario, because it's not about necessarily flipping your life upside down.
No.
It's about helping your brain and your body respond to it differently.
If
And you
need
can-
be, because a lot of people,
Yeah.
we have a lot of people that are just like, oh my gosh, like I can't even imagine all of the things you just said, and
Right.
being, having to deal with like all those people, all those things,
Right.
and it's just like you just learn to manage it over time because
Exactly.
we grew up, we grew into all of that,
Yeah, really.
right,
Right.
Yeah,
but
grew
Well,
into it.
and-
That's kind of it comes on gradually.
And the key piece to what we do, the real reason why we're a stress reduction therapy clinic, is to help people manage their stress, change their stress responses so that they don't have chronic issues down the line. It's a preventative approach, completely preventative.
Because
and
the issue's not
proactive.
going away.
The issue's not going away.
It's
Right,
how
and
you're
and you
handling
It's
it.
gotta
how
do
your
it.
body's responding
Okay.
to it. And if I'm doing it in an old pattern, it's going to have the same outcome. If I do it in a new pattern, well, then I'm going to have a different outcome.
give me an example of the pattern.
Okay, a grief pattern.
Okay.
I just can't seem to get past the anxiety and the grief of a loss
Okay.
that happened way back when I was little. Brain's still trying to process and solve that. Get to the process where it's, okay, apply the truth on every level, spiritually, emotionally, physically, energetically, chemically, and the body resolves it, spiral in the brain goes away, and now my body will take direction from the new pathway.
All right, I want to talk about I want to know how this all ties into addiction when we come back.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
great.
Yep.
This is Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com. Because Sheila, I'm hooked on you.
You're sweet.
We'll be right back.
Ditto.
Okay, when we went out to break, I have a question about addiction and how this all ties into, I suppose it's a matter of how people are managing their stressors or not managing them so that it
Correct.
comes out in an unhealthy fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Do you deal with that much?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of it. And the key piece to that is genetic expressions. So all of these things tie together, they dovetail together. But when you stay in a chronic fight or flight pattern, you're going to have multiple genetic expressions inappropriately expressed. Well, if that happens to be unresolved addiction patterns up your bloodline, okay, it doesn't mean that every child that's born, to an alcoholic father is going to be an alcoholic. What it means is, have there been current life circumstances that have allowed that genetic expression to stay flipped on?
Such as a divorce.
Correct.
And I
Or
gotta
learned behavior.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
And I have to believe that, and maybe not, I mean, I could be off on this, that there's some sort of range of age that when a divorce happens to a child, is there a certain like right age that it hurts the most? not
I would say
It's individual
it hurts the
again.
same. It's just different brain development and processing
Okay.
for the child, because there's a very distinct brain development that's supposed to happen during certain ages. And when the shocks or traumas or unexpected life events happen, that's when you start to see where there might be patterns of how that's going to affect. Like a child's either going to withdraw or they're going to lash out.
Mm,
That's typically what I see.
right. And it could be a response to the same thing.
It could be response to the same thing.
Mhm.
Exactly. And it just depends on their genetic expression, how they view themselves in the world. Do they immediately think it's somehow my fault?
Uh-huh.
Which is what a normal child development, brain pathway is. But of course, that's not true
Right.
most of the time.
Right.
I mean, maybe less than 1%
Yeah.
of a child situation is actually the reason for a divorce. But that child is going to continue to adapt to that negative pattern. So, that's going to start to create all kinds of other
Yeah.
after effect patterns. And if we can go back to the root pattern and help the brain resolve that in the heart, the other thing is wounds in the heart. I mean, that's huge. Wounds in the heart is a big deal. And I have a little handout I show people of what does the heart actually look like when they describe their wound to me. Someone will say immediately, I'll say, close your eyes and tell me what your heart looks like. Oh my gosh, there's a big hole right smack in the middle and it's black.
Mm-hmm.
They know exactly what it is, but nobody's ever asked them to close their eyes and look at their heart. So they're walking around every day with a big hole in their heart, wounded, from an emotional, energetic, spiritual, whatever trigger. So that wound just keeps operating on an energetic level, and
So-
that affects the brain.
Can you just speak to timelines a little bit then?
Mm-hmm.
So from that point, I mean, how long does it take sometimes for some of this stuff to manifest, or how long can it linger and still manifest? And then what's the timeline from identification to cure?
Well, first off, I believe that the only cure is the Word of God applied, because it's the truth. If you
Okay.
walk in the truth, you're going to see your body optimally function. Okay, I don't use the word cure because everybody's journey is unique.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking at timelines, I mean, I've seen everything from literally healing on one session to people that take years, because it's so determined and related to what they're going through and what they're choosing. And, this is a thing where a lot of times people aren't ready to come to our clinic because it's a 50-50 deal. People need to participate in
Mhm.
there. When they come to me and they want me to just give them an herb or a supplement and
Right.
be on their way,
Fix me.
I'm not your gal.
Yeah.
I'm just not. There's no way the body's going to heal. That's what got them to the point where they're at,
Right.
whatever that is. And then, not dealing with the stuff that needs to be addressed.
So how many people come knowing that you've got this faith-based piece of it to it? Like,
I would say probably 70%.
okay, so then when the other 30 come,
Oh, because it's on your website. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
so
but when
it's
the
all
other
over.
30 come, I
Yep.
mean,
The foundation is
like
we
how
can agree on that we've all experienced fear and pain. And so for me, the fear is in a spiritual bucket. It's a spiritual dynamic.
Mhm.
Regardless of what people believe, their faith, that's their journey. That's
Right.
where they're at. But for me, I want to make sure we address that part, because most people aren't addressing the fear. Well, what's the fear? Is it just fear, or is it a fear I can't handle, I can't shake, or is it a fear of something, right? So people are always walking around in conscious and subconscious fear. Well, that's not ideal, and that's not optimal. And fear, everything that we speak, every word, everything that we see, everything we touch has its own unique frequency.
Mhm.
So now you're talking about a whole nother show with vibrational medicine. But
Yeah,
that's what we do.
right.
So all of it is about frequency. So if I can just help someone understand that word fear has a negative impact, and that's going to help, likely affect the kidneys, because that frequency migrates to certain organs or
Sure.
tissues of the
Yep.
body, right? We
Yep.
know that to be
Yep.
true.
Yep.
Both sides of the fence. And so if we look at that and that person cannot resolve that fear, well, now we've elevated it to a stronghold, right? This has got a stranglehold on someone.
Mhm.
They just cannot shake this fear. They can't shake the anxiety. Well, why? So oftentimes it's tied to something that happened to them prior to their conscious memory, like age 5 or younger, a traumatic birth, something like that. And that never gets addressed. That stays in the lower left quadrant of the brain. So neuroscience studies have shown that if that stays locked up in the lower left quadrant, there could be anything trigger that.
So how do you release that?
Help them resolve it in the sense of if there's an age that's a highest priority stressor, and we can determine that through the spine, through the integrated kinesiology, what that age is, well, then that person can choose to resolve that, and I walk them through that process.
Okay.
And then they have the
Because
home
if it's
play.
on a precognition time, if it's
Yep.
before they have a
They
memory
won't
of it,
remember.
how do they even know?
Because their body will be triggered from a lifetime trigger now,
Mhm.
and then we map it out to that, so that they consciously know and understand what it is that they need to deal with.
Detective
and a lot
work.
of times, exactly. And a lot of times, it's actually not their stuff fully.
Oh yeah, not their monkeys, not their circus.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
It's somebody else's.
exactly.
So what's a
Grandma.
typical time frame? Like how many sessions typically does somebody need to do before they get?
That truly depends on the severity and how long they've had the symptoms, typically. But again, in that same situation, I've seen people that heal very, very quickly. A couple of sessions, they're there for a month. We run them through everything that we can do to help support their system out of stress patterns. And then some respond immediately and they're done. I mean, they're like, great. I feel fantastic. I'm sleeping. I don't have my symptoms. But they're also doing their home play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
right,
getting their home
right.
play
And
and
they've
they're
got
doing
new
it.
tools to
Right,
work
yeah, new
with.
tools.
Right.
They're helping their vagus nerve be neutral every day. They're giving
The
themselves a
vagus
good
nerve thing,
self-talk.
I still don't quite get a head of
That
it.
vagus nerve, it's an exercise that takes 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Describe it.
It's your eyes, your optic nerve activating your vagus nerve. because the vagus nerve, if it's offline or stuck in fight or flight, you can reactivate it with your eyes. And that's why a lot of people can't get out of the fight or flight, though, because they're visually seeing a lot of trauma on a daily basis, or they're seeing metaphorically their life coming at them, and it's not pleasant, or there's so many stressors that they start to get allergic to life, quote unquote allergic to life. So
Which then comes up with, the gut issue,
You got it.
this thing.
and you
the
can
that
be
thing.
allergic to life. You can be allergic to a person. You're not just,
You
people
can
don't just get
totally be
allergic to food.
a person.
Totally. And you're not just allergic to food, dogs, cats, whatever.
Right.
But there's so many toxins in our world.
Mm-hmm.
It disrupts communication in the body. And you combine that with a little bit of grief, and you combine that with a little bit of negative self-talk on a daily basis, and not sleeping. I mean, you've got yourself
And
the
then,
recipe
and then,
Yeah, for a
2020.
disaster.
for 80% of the people walking around.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just a unique variation of way people look through filters.
How long have you been doing this?
20 years.
20 years.
Mhm.
And I mean, you're pretty passionate about it,
Yes,
just
I am.
like we are as well. And we're never gonna stop working. It's just
Right.
it's just who it is. So I
Right.
gotta believe you're the same way.
Yes. Yes, and I love what I do. I mean,
Yeah.
now
I
we're
do too.
embarking on the building the first neuroscience institute of pastoral medicine with the United Christian Academy campus in Lakeville, and
What does that look like?
that looks like being able to help having funds, nonprofits, and funds that will help kids that can't afford care, or kids that are in the foster care system, kids that aren't responding to mainstream medicine, to be able to come.
How much of a conflict is there? We have some minute 37 left. How much of a conflict do you find yourself in with Western medicine? I mean, is this something that kind of can go hand in hand, or is it just diametrically opposed?
No, it can go hand in hand. That's the majority of people. They're either, walking that whole line and never known that there are other options, or people that are exploring other options. I've got them all across the board. But I think it complements traditional medicine, because we're looking at two completely different things, and we're looking through different lenses. One, you're looking at physical symptoms and trying to subdue the symptom.
Is
On
the
this
bone
end,
broke?
right, exactly. Let's get it set and help it heal. And then you've got this side where we're dealing with stress patterns, and we're dealing with people's thought processes, and glass half empty, glass half full. I mean, where do I
Do you
land?
get referrals from the Western medicine
Yes.
doctors?
I do.
Who said, we've done everything, we just don't
Yep.
know what to do. Go
Yeah.
talk to her. Cause,
Yeah, I've got at least, I think there's probably 8 to 10 doctors right now that currently refer to me.
on a regular basis.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, it's got to be frustrating for them too, because they,
Right.
they go down there dealing with just
Right.
like,
I don't know what
Right.
to
They
do.
don't know
Check
what
the
to do.
boxes
They don't know.
and
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
Because they're giving them the stuff and it's not working.
Yeah.
Right?
Can you come stay at our house for about a week?
Sure.
I got some work that I need you to do on my wife. This is Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com, ourhealthyhomes.com, 651-775-9194 if you want to speak to my wife,
Yes.
651-775-9194.
Boy, would I love to speak to you.
We'll be back.
But when he calls me sugar, I love that man with all my might. Sugar in the morning, sugar in the afternoon. Sugar after dinner, sugar in every room. He says I'm sweet as I can be. When he calls me that name, it does things to me. I tell him, honey, you can call me sugar.